In this video, I go through the search to find the best ink pen in the world, relative to the pens I own and subject to my own opinion. And in doing so, I'm going to tackle the entire Inktober 2020 challenge in one day and judge each of these epic pens up against the same standards and criteria to find the ultimate pen. Okay, just a line here. And yep. Oh God, that's satisfying. This is where it gets tricky. And done. Oh, that was a satisfying poo. G'day everyone, I'm Jazza, and I have a bit of a pen problem. Over the 8+ years of running this YouTube channel, I've bought a lot of pen and inking supplies. I've been sent and given a lot of pen and inking supplies. And with October less than a week away and a lot of people preparing for Inktober, bit of an event where people test their inking skills and participate in a sort of community ink challenge self-betterment experience, I thought it was high time I took all of my ink pens and put them to the test. I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty loose with what I allowed into this challenge. I mean, partially because there are so many pens that I haven't used before and I'm super curious as to how they feel, and frankly, I needed 31 pens to do every prompt of the Inktober challenge, and you know, let's just say some of them are a bit of a stretch. But you know what? I think if you want to do Inktober with a Sharpie or a paint pen, you should be able to. There are no rules except for the official rules and the things people shout at you when they're telling you you're doing it wrong. But this is art, people! Rules are made to be broken! And it just so happens that I'm good at breaking stuff. I'll be making an illustration with all of these, and all of them will receive a score out of 10 for the following 3 criteria. 1, their illustration capability. How good are they at drawing pictures? 2, quality. How does it feel in hand? What does the ink or medium that goes down look like and feel like? And 3, satisfaction. If the pen feels good. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly what you will want to ink with. But I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, hey Jazza, now that I know what to draw with, how will I know how to draw? What do you want from me? A Skillshare class on illustration? Okay, I happen to have just released a massive class on illustration. And I go through from the very beginning how to make the best concept possible and how to refine that, thumbnail sketches, get the illustration looking the best it can before you put the pen to paper, and most importantly, how to make the pen on the paper as effective as possible. I am confident that whether you're a beginner or intermediate or even advanced, if you go through my Skillshare class, you will take things that will help you take your art to the next level, and it's a really good fun time. The link is in the description, and the first 1,000 people to use that link will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. So if you want to explore their over 30,000 classes, illustration, drawing, design, business, social media, art, calligraphy, and loads more, go check out that link. And a huge thank you, of course, to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, it's time for the big challenge. Let's dive right in. We start off with contender number 1, who gets the prompt blade. I decided as just the going rule for this project to keep it simple for myself. Basically, I'm just gonna draw the first thing that comes to mind. And the first thing that comes to mind for blade is, well, you know, blade. So after a quick construction sketch, I cracked out the Sharpie, the ever reliable Sharpie. I tried to get something decent out of it, and, you know, decent is probably the word to use for it. Illustration, quality, satisfaction, all pretty decent. Contestant number 2, Uni Pin. The prompt for this was fancy, and 2 things came to mind: someone who looked fancy and someone who had a fancy. Using the Uni Pin fine liners was really familiar. I happened to have a massive full set ranging from 0.03 all the way up to 0.8, and with a brush pen, which I actually didn't know that the Uni Pin fine liners had, and I gotta say, was incredibly satisfying and really suitable to illustration. I gave it 9 for illustration because they're built for illustrating, 8 for quality, and 8 for satisfaction. Next, we have the Copic Multiliners. The prompt for the Copic Multiliners was crawl, and of course, I went straight to the wall crawler. And you would expect these to be real hard hitters, and frankly, they weren't. The dips just don't hold up. They got frayed at the ends, and I can't get decent brush pen lines out of my Copic Multiliner brush pen. So yeah, I gave it an 8 for illustration because they are made for that, but a 6 for quality and a 6 for satisfaction. Next we have the Artline 210 medium. My prompt for this was hope, and the use of this pen was, I'm gonna say, you know, pretty comfortable, pretty satisfying and pretty familiar, but just really not built for great illustration. So I gave it a 7 for both illustration and quality, but an 8 for satisfaction because it is kind of fun to use. It feels nice. Next, the Pigma Micron. And with my prompt being rodent, of course I drew Remy from Ratatouille, and the pens were okay. I also didn't know they had a brush pen, and that one was surprisingly satisfying and really high quality. So our Pigma Micron pens got an 8 for illustration, but a 7 for quality and satisfaction. Moving on to the Artline paint marker with the prompt Storm. Now, illustration with the Artline paint marker was obviously not what it was intended for, but it held up all right. I know this isn't an ink pen, it's a paint marker, but I had 31 spots to fill in, and it's more interesting to see a wider variety. So I gave this one a 7 for illustration, 6 for quality, and 7 for satisfaction. The Pilot Parallel Pen. By the way, my prompt is dizzy. Obviously, this isn't the best illustration pen. It's not an illustration pen. It's a bad illustration pen, so I gave it a 2 for illustration. But goddamn, the pen quality and the ink tone is good. So quality is 7. And frankly, this pen is the most satisfying pen I have ever used in my life. Yeah, feels good, man. Bad for illustration, but that was fun. And we have the Spectrum Noir Artliners. The thing that frustrates me about them is they don't have the pen like nib size on the lids, and the build quality is frankly shit. It's just so disappointing because the way they draw is phenomenal, and the brush pen is one of the best brush pens I have. It's fantastic, and I forgot how good it was. By the way, you'll just notice a lot of different techniques that I'm using that I'm not really going into detail into in this video. If you're interested in the way I'm drawing some of this stuff, I have that class on Skillshare. I have an advanced illustration that I go through in the same class, and in that I go a lot into line weight variation and motion and texture and shading. While I can't really go into it a lot on my YouTube channel, that's just not really what YouTube likes these days, my Skillshare class is a fantastic place for you to be able to pick up those tips, and I don't hold back. And when you're used to those tips and tricks and you can just crack them out on a whim, some simple line shading, simple line weight variation, you get really satisfying results even with a 10 to 15 minute time limit like I had with my kitty cat here. And these Spectrum Noir Artliners were fantastic. 9 for illustration. Quality 5, not great, but 8 for satisfaction. Really nice to use. Prompts for my double-sided Tombow ABT pen was Dig, and of course that turned into Diglet. Yeah, they perform pretty well. It feels pretty comfortable to use. Illustration 7, quality 7, satisfaction 8. Alright, mid-video break because it's day 2. And I have to say, so far, given the wide range of pens that I've used, many of which are the same type of pen, they all feel very different. But with the pens that are coming up, they get even wilder and more different. Some are going to be obviously more useful than others, but I have a feeling we're in for some surprises, pleasant and unpleasant. The competition is bound to be incredible. I'm sorry, let's go. So, getting stuck into it again with pen number 10, the Uniball Gel Impact Pen with the prompt Throw. Gotta say, more satisfying than I expected. Obviously more intended for writing than drawing, but a solid 7 for illustration, quality 6, satisfaction 7. The Zebra something pen, I don't know what it's called. It's got a bunch of different, like, I think Japanese characters, I don't know what it's called. If you know what this is called, please let me know in the comments. With the prompt Trap, I drew Admiral Akbar. It's a trap! Really satisfying to draw with a really solid pen. I gotta say, it's way up there. 8 for illustration, 8 for quality, and 9 for satisfaction. Now that's a trap I'd get caught in, if you know what I mean. Pen number 12, the Marabou Fineliner Graphics Fineliners with the prompt Bulky. These are good. These are a real solid contender. Great set, really affordable. And the mix of pen weights and the inclusion of a brush pen make it a really nice set. So 8 for illustration, 7 for quality, and 7 for satisfaction. Number 13, the Caron Brush Marker Pro with the prompt Music. The nib and the flow, I don't know, it's really satisfying and great to use, and considering it comes in a black, I figured I might as well include it in the process. The ink is a little watery, but the experience of drawing with the pen is really fun. 7 for illustration, 8 for quality, and 9 for satisfaction. 14, the Pentel Sign Pen with the prompt Teeth. It's called the Sign Pen. I'm assuming it's meant to be used to sign stuff. But, you know, it drew pretty well, probably more fittingly than the Sharpie, because the nib size, it's just a little more suited to illustration. 6 for illustration, 6 for quality, and 7 for satisfaction. The Copic Gas and Food with the prompt ominous. Now, I gotta say, the Copic Gas and Food are among the more satisfying pens, specifically brush pens, that you can use. There is an unfortunate sort of texture when the ink wears thin or when you draw a little too fast with these pens, which does encourage you to go a little bit slower in general. It does sort of make for a fairly satisfying outcome if you can get that flow moving well. 8 for illustration, 8 for quality, and 9 for satisfaction. The Artline Calligraphy Set with the prompt outpost. Now, obviously, calligraphy pens in general are more tailored towards calligraphy, but I have to say there is something about having a bit of a chisel nib or having more of a brush nib suited to calligraphy that really produces cool results with illustration. And this Artline Calligraphy Set is one that is, I feel, most unique and interestingly suited to illustration, even though it's a calligraphy set. Really quite fun to draw with. 7 for illustration, 8 for quality, and 9 for satisfaction. Then on to the Pentel Calligraphy Set. Now, there is a hard and a soft variation, so I separated these, and with the prompt shoes, the hard calligraphy pen really stands up to the task. I'm going to try and not be biased here because I use this pen all the time, but I use it all the time for reasons. It's really easy to keep a sharp tip for details and textures, but then when you want some thicker lines or to do heavy outlines and all sorts of different effects, the fact that there is a flexible tip and it almost feels like a brush pen, but not quite, just makes it a really unique illustration tool. 9 for illustration, 9 for quality, and 9 for satisfaction. And likewise, we have, again, the same pen, but the soft variant with the prompt slippery. As you can see, it draws pretty much the same. The only difference is that the nib tip is just a little bit softer. Now, I'm heavy-handed, so I personally prefer the hard nib, but I'm giving this pen the exact same score because, frankly, it should score the same because it performs the same and it feels the same. Just depends on your preference as to what your drawing style is. Next, we have the Artline Cdr Dvd Marker with the prompt disgusting. I had it in the pen's container, and you know what? It did a good job. It actually felt pretty bloody satisfying. 7 for illustration, 7 for quality, and 8 for satisfaction. Not only is that a solid score, that's a good score. Number 20, the Pentel FRH pen. I'm not sure what that stands for, with the prompt rip, and I'm, I guess, flowing off of the previously drawn zombie theme. I'm just carrying that forward. This pen was a disappointment. Watery ink, and though it had that bristle tip, the same as the Gas and Food, it really just didn't feel good. 4 for illustration, 5 for quality, but 7 for satisfaction. Number 21, the Papermate Kilometrico with the prompt chef and drawing Chef Gusto in a really simple style. Look, it draws a picture. It's not the best in the world and it feels awful to use. If I had the choice of any other pen, I'd pick it because this is not fun. Illustration 3, quality 2, satisfaction 0. Pen number 22, my 130-year-old fountain pen. Now, I've done a whole video on this. I've actually done a whole video on a bunch of these pens, and I highly recommend you go check it out because this is a really unique pen. One of the most early cartridge pocket pens to be produced. A really innovative piece of equipment for its time, and really cool that I have this as part of my collection. So with the prompt rocket, it was time to see how it drew, and I gotta say, it feels pretty good. Now, I think I needed to refill the ink in this a little bit because whenever the nib split too much, it sort of drew 2 lines and I had to go back and go over it a bit. And then obviously later in the illustration, the ink ran out. But overall, it was a fun experience. And I gotta say, most of the satisfaction comes from the fact that it's such a unique pen. Sometimes the specialness of the tool adds to the experience. 5 for illustration, 5 for quality, and 7 for satisfaction. Number 23, the Edding 1880 Drawliner 0.4 with the prompt armor. This pen drew pretty well. It held up. It, you know, it's just a normal fine liner, but it did make me wonder what the rest of the set would be like. Certainly felt suitable for illustration with a score of 8, quality 8, but satisfaction 7. Good, but nothing stand out. Number 24, the Uni Posca Pens with the prompt June. And having just painted my entire door with the paint pens, I certainly have a feeling for how they handle, and they're pretty satisfying to draw with, but you know, they're not the best for illustration itself, especially on a smaller scale like this. So for illustration 4, quality 5, and then satisfaction 6. Number 25, the Artline 550A whiteboard marker, because why not? It was in the box, okay, and I needed 31 pens with the prompt float. Drew a dude floating in a pool, and it's a picture. 666. The mark of the beast. Next, the Kmart Rose Gold pen, the prompt wisp. I didn't have high hopes. Felt a little bit better than the other ballpoint pen. Again, I had 31 spots to fill. 4, 5, 3. 27, my boring dip pen with a prompt fish. This was just a random dip pen I had. I was pleasantly surprised by how satisfied I felt drawing, illustrating with a calligraphy dip pen. The lines flowed really well. It had a great ink reservoir, and the aesthetic of being forced to work with really sharp and thin lines and with certain directions of drawing, and also drawing top left to bottom right because I'm right-handed, so I didn't smear the ink. Certainly had things you had to work around, but honestly it added to the experience of focus and almost turned the artwork into a puzzle and more satisfying. Illustration 8, quality 7, and satisfaction 9. Number 28, my fancy ass quill. With the prompt radio, drew a little dude walking with his radio flyer with a radio in it. That feeling of getting some nice line weight variation and some sharp lines with a calligraphy pen, I really feel adds to the style and the experience. So same score as the other dip pen, but plus 1 point for quality. But with the glass dip pen, the experience was a lot less pleasant. With no pressure sensitivity for the tip of a glass pen, obviously. And I don't know if I'm just out of practice since I last used it, but it was really hard to control the flow. Sometimes it just could put all of the ink in the spot I didn't want it all at once. And sometimes I just couldn't get to draw a fucking line of filling the ink. Very frustrating. 2 for illustration, 5 for quality, and 0 for satisfaction. We have the Artline 90 high performance permanent marker with the prompt Buddy. I drew a dog. His name's probably Buddy. It's a drawing. 466. It's alright. And last but certainly not least, maybe okay, last but least, the Sharpie Magnum with the prompt Coral. I don't recommend drawing with a Sharpie Magnum unless you're drawing on something big, which I've done before too. But in this case, and with these comparisons and for this application, illustration 1, quality 3, satisfaction 2. I don't recommend doing this. I've done all of Inktober in 2 days. We're going to start giving out some awards. Best pen set goes to Uni Pen, the pen that I grew up with in high school. So while I feel like I am biased at the same time, it comes with the experience of knowing that they have lasted like 8 years without needing to replace the pen. And with this full set, the fact that it comes with a brush pen, I thought was really cool. I'd never used a Uni Pen fine liner brush pen, and it was amazing. How about the most pleasant surprise pen? I'm gonna give this to the Artline Cdr Dvd Marker. Honestly, I wasn't quite surprised as to how enjoyable it was to use, and it worked out to be pretty good for illustration. The most unpleasant surprise reward goes to the Pentel FRH. I had high hopes for this, but the ink was weak and the drawing experience was crappy, and so that gets the sad trombone sound award. Let me just take a minute to just point out that I drew 31 illustrations in this video. And if you enjoyed seeing me draw, and if you feel like that might be something you want to learn more about, my Skillshare class is for you. But beyond that, Skillshare isn't just about watching classes and learning, it's also about participating, specifically through class projects. And I've been blown away by the projects submitted to my class, so much so that I actually recorded an additional video for the end of my class where I go through my class participants' projects and share some further insights and advice, as well as just really enjoying your artwork. So no matter what level you're at, if this is the sort of thing you think you could benefit from learning more about, and specifically by being taught by yours truly, please go check out that class in the description. Huge thank you to Skillshare for making the class with me and for sponsoring this video. Now our 3 finalists are going to be based on the 3 categories. So let's start off with illustration. So it seems that there are 3 kinds of pen that I gave a 9 for illustration. The Uni Pen, which already won the award for the best set, Spectrum Noir Art Liner, and the Pentel Calligraphy Pens, both hard and soft. I'm going to give this to the Pentel Calligraphy Pen. Then we have quality. How does it feel to use? Is it built well? There's a bunch of 8s, but there's only 2 pens that are 9s, which are the same ones that won the illustration award. So I'm going to give the award to those, but I'll pick a second place just so we can share the spotlight a little bit, which I'll give to the Caran Brush Marker Pro. The ink has spread a little bit after the fact, which isn't great, but the pen feels really good and it has a really high satisfaction score too. So if you want to use an ink pen that just feels really high quality and a cool experience, Caran Brush Marker Pro, there you go. And then finally, the only 10 that we have in any of the scores goes to satisfaction for the Pilot Parallel Pen. Bad illustration, good quality, fantastically satisfying. Oh my god, if this isn't just the coolest experience ever, just feeling that ink flow out of the cartridge pen. But I guess that means that our overall winner is the Pentel Calligraphy Pen. I use these all the time. And they actually come in sets of both, but I wanted to sort of separate them in the judging, both because I needed 31 pens, but also because I wanted to see how they differ. And they don't differ a lot. I personally prefer the hard kind, but the nib feels almost like a plastic, but it gives you a lot of give and a lot of responsiveness. You can just be quite gentle and get really sharp and thin lines. But then of course, if you really want to have some dynamic illustration and have some thicker areas, or even use it for calligraphy, obviously, I think the results you get with this pen are absolutely phenomenal. The Pentel Calligraphy Pen is my 100% favorite, and I hope you've enjoyed the experience of going through all of this. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite that you use or you personally prefer for your illustration or writing style. If you feel my judging was fair or not fair, let me know in the comments down below. But otherwise, most of all, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed the illustrations I drew with all the different pens and my little way of participating in Inktober this year. Otherwise, there are more videos over there you're bound to enjoy. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.